The first thing you want to do is verify your documents. Make sure that the aircraft registration and airworthiness certificate is located on the airplane, visible, and that they are current. Next, make sure the ignition is set to the off position and that the key is out. Turn on the master battery and EFIS 1. This will illuminate the screen in front of you. Now we have to adjust the trim. To do this, you will use the buttons found on the top of the stick to line up the arrows with the green lines. Doing this will align the trim tabs flush with the control surfaces of our ailerons and elevator. Next, you'll want to check the fuel levels found on the bottom left corner of the screen. In this specific plane, the left wing has more fuel than the right, so you want to set the fuel selector to the tank which has more fuel. Now you'll want to hit the menu button found at the bottom of your screen. Tap on Engine Tools. Clear your trip timers and match your fuel by hitting the fuel button on the screen and then pressing the match button found at the bottom of the screen. Once you've done that, press accept and you're good to go. The next thing you'll want to do is lower the flaps to 30 degrees. You can see the angle of the flaps on the bottom right corner of the monitor, and your flaps will begin to move. Next, you want to check that the circuit breakers are all pushed in. You can find the circuit breakers on the bottom right-hand side of the dashboard. After doing that, we'll turn on the lights, and this includes our navigation light, strobe light, and landing light. On the left wing, you'll have a red light, strobe light, and white light. On the right wing, you'll have a green light, strobe light, and white light. Check the landing light under the propeller and make sure it's illuminated. Once you've checked all the lights, turn off all the light switches from right to left, then turn off your EFIS 1 switch, and lastly, your master battery switch. Starting with the left wing, you'll inspect the flap and make sure that it does not move. Next, check that the aileron has full range of motion, and underneath, check that the rod is secure and has a slight wiggle to it. Inspect the wingtip and make sure it's in good condition and that there's no damage to it. Also, inspect the light found on the wingtip and make sure it's secure and there's no cracks. Check the pitot tube found under the left wing and make sure the center hole and static port are clear of any debris or blockage. Inspect the leading edge for any damage. Let's move on to fuel. Remove the cap by pulling the tab up, twisting it, and then pulling it away from the wing. Visually inspect the fuel quantity. Then replace the cap. Next, check that the wing locker is shut and the screws are fully tightened. Check the left main wheel cover and make sure it's in good condition with no cracks or visible damage. Make sure the tire is properly inflated, check the wear indicators, and make sure there's no cord line showing. Check the main gear for any leaking hydraulic fluid. We're looking for a lot of the same things on the nose wheel. We want to make sure that the wheel cover is in good condition, it's damage free, that the wheel's inflated, check the wear indicators, and make sure there's no cord line showing. Check that the cowling is secure with all the cam locks fastened. Make sure the spinner is free of damage and secured. Inspect the leading edge of each of the propeller blades for any cracks. Checking the oils next. Open up the oil compartment door and remove the oil cap. After removing the cap, turn the propeller until you hear the plane burp. Check the oil level and make sure it's higher than halfway up the flat surface of the dipstick. Once that's verified, place the dipstick back in place, put the cap back on, and close the door. Moving on to the right wing, check that the wing locker is properly secured, just like we did with the left one. Check the right main wheel cover for any damage. Check the wear indicators, make sure there's no cord line showing, proper inflation. We're also checking the brake pad and inspecting the wheel for any hydraulic fluid leaking. Next, remove the right wing fuel cap. Visually inspect the fuel quantity. Once you're done, replace the fuel cap. Inspect the leading edge of the right wing for any damage, and do the same thing for the wingtip. Ensure that the lights are not damaged and secured. Ensure that the trim tab sits flush with the aileron. Again, check that the aileron has full range of motion and ensure that the rod is secure and has some wiggle to it. Ensure that the right wing flap does not move. Ensure that the temperature probe is attached. Inspect that the right side of the aircraft is free of any damage. Then move on to the vertical stabilizer, and then again the horizontal stabilizer. Check that the elevator is clear of damage as well. The elevator trim tab should be flush with the elevator. Ensure that the anti-servo tab deflects in the same direction as the movement of the elevator. Lastly, lift the elevator up, check underneath it, and make sure that the bolt and pin are secured and that there's a little bit of wiggle. Ensure that the rotor has full range of motion and that the trim tab is not bent out of place. Visually inspect the antennas, which include the navigation antenna, the comm antenna, the ELT, the transponder, and ADS-B. Inspect the left side of the aircraft to make sure it's in good condition, just like we did with the right. Lastly, we want to test the fuel. You'll find some fuel sumps under the left wing, the nose, and the right wing of the aircraft. Test each one and make sure the fuel is clear of any dirt, debris, and that there is no water contaminated in the fuel sample. This concludes the interior and exterior pre-flight for the Sport Cruiser. If you found this video to be helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to learn more about aviation.